Hello everybody and welcome to my Rimworld tutorial. Today we're going over Rimatomics, an amazing mod. This is a re-upload from an older version and an older video that was terrible because it was one of my first videos I've ever made. So I'm going to shorten this down and make it a heck of a lot more simple. So what we got here is once you've completed all of your research, it's very end game stuff, so you can complete this. You need some high-tech stuff to get it. Once you've done that, though, you can start to... Where is it? It is... there it is. You can start to get this. I'm on God mode, so I'll turn that off. This is what you'll see when you first unlock it through the Research tab. You'll have your Research bench, which you can shove down. Research bench will have a work speed penalty because it's outdoors, so preferably put that indoors. And a machining table, which has the same effect. And I don't have the stuff to build this, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put me on God mode. You can do this, you don't need to, but if you want to play the game fully. Where are we? Here we are. So shove that down there, and through here we got different radiation detectors, radiation suits, which we can research for all this sort of stuff. This is something that you can go over yourself once you download the mod. You can just have a look, just work your way through to get the stuff that I'm going to show you. But through this video, I'm going to mainly be showing who is doing that. Is this you? Thank you. I'm going to be mainly showing you how to actually set up the reactor. So moving back into this, we've got all of our reactor components, and to start off with, what we want is we want a reactor. So we can either choose reactor A, which is small, reactor X, a little bit bigger, or reactor V, which is the biggest and the baddest, the big boy of the goal. I don't know. Let's choose reactor V because I like big reactors. So we got a nice big reactor here, and the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to get a turbine. You can either choose the Thor or the Zeus. Of course, the difference being this one requires a heck of a lot more stuff. I'm going to choose the Zeus because it's a big reactor needing a big turbine. This is the sort of kit which you would need for a whole massive base. If you've just got a small little base, just choose reactor A and just choose the Thor turbine. They can be, you know, they're both the same. They just hold. This one holds more fuel cells. This one can create more power for you. Once you've done this, you're also going to want a cooling tower, either a cooling tower, a water cooling station, or a radiator. Now, a radiator, you can shove it inside your base, and what it will do is it will heat it up. So you'll have your reactor and it will heat it up. So you can use it as a heater, which will be quite nice if you've got a big base that is like in the hillside that's always getting cold. Or water cooling. I can't seem to get these to work, but if you're near a body of water, put this down near it and it will, I suppose it'll bring in water to cool down your reactor. But what I'm going to be using is I'm going to be using a dry cooling tower, which take up some space, but they seem to work, and they're very nice. So what you need to remember is with cooling, it doesn't go into the reactor, it goes into the turbine. So we're going to bring this along here, bring it up, and just put these into each of the turbines like so, and that gives us our cooling. The next step that we want to do is we want steam pipes. Now we can put in a steam pipe into here, and then we can put a steam valve. You don't have to put one of these in, it's 15 more steel, but I like to just in case I ever need to switch it off nice and quickly without scramming the reactor, which I'll show you how to do later on. And then you're going to do exactly the same for the cold water, reactor, into turbine, hot water, reactor, into turbine. It doesn't matter which way around you do it, as long as you've got this and it's not into the coolant, because that makes a different type of reactor, I think, which won't give you any power, which is never nice. And then on this side of it, for the what's it called again? For the turbine, we're going to put down a couple of transformers. Sometimes, usually just one works. I like to use a couple because I'm wasteful, and there's not too much steel, but it's 5 components. And then what this does is Rimatomics has their own high voltage power, which this creates. So if you wanted to, you could have a high voltage power running all the way over to wherever your base is, and then you can drop it down using the transformers. I like to do it on site, so I'm going to just deconstruct a part of that. And what you then do is, once they go into the transformers, we can turn it straight back into what I like to call Rimatomics power, which will power through these. And then we just put a power conductor, and then that connects all of that up. To start off your reactor, you will need some power. It's not exactly an unlimited powered device, so it does need a little bit of power to run it, start it off with. So once we got our basic setup, we got our coolers, we got our reactor, we got our turbine, and we got the way that we're going to retrieve the power. We now need a console, a reactor console, which will allow us to control the reactor. Quite a nice little way of doing it. And use a console loom to connect both of these plants up together. When you go on your reactor, make sure that this here is your ID. So if you have multiple reactors in a base, you can set one to alpha, one to beta, and the control panels, they don't mix up. So make sure if this is set to alpha, this is set to alpha as well. If it's not, you can just click on it, and where it's there, that was a bad time to autosave. And where it says here, just change the name to whatever you want it to be. Okay, another thing to remember with the control panel, the person that you use to access the control panel has to have a intellectual above 8. If the intellectual's under 8, they can't use it. So that would be a good thing to start off with. When you're thinking about either getting people in, or at the start of the game, think about having somebody at least with a high intellectual skill, because if they don't, then you won't be able to use the reactor. So I'm doing this pretty wrong, because what you really would have had is you would have had your whole, either your solar generator, or whatever other type of generator you used, and then you just connect that up. And this would give your system a startup of power to get everything going. If you're in God mode and you just want to do this through debugs, click on it and you do max fuel. However, I had a question on my old video about what to do if it wasn't, because I did on my older video wrong. So just you'll be creating your reactor rods. What are they called? Where are they? Your fuel rods. You'll be creating your fuel rods. So you would have made some fuel rods through the workbench. They're sort of, they're not too bad to buy either from a trader. You could possibly do it that way. But what you're going to want to do is on your reactor, you will have, on your reactor console, you get your person, ask them to manage your reactor. Let's wait for them to come over, shall we? Come on, Cole. And what you want to do is you want to click on the slot where you want the reactor control rod to go in. So like so. And your people will automatically come along, and they will shove the control rods into it, which is very nice and handy. And then we got our control rods in there. Handy things to add on to this: reactor radiation detectors. They're always handy to have, because people can get radiation poisoning, and it can be a nightmare to contain it. Which is why, moving on to radiation shielding, we can contain the whole reactor in this stuff, and it will stop radiation from spreading too far, which will stop anything from getting this poisoning. Also, I'd advise making this inside and nowhere near your base, because when these blow up, which they do, it can be a nightmare if it's right next to your base. Are we on low food? Oh, we are. It can be a nightmare if it's right next to your base. So what we're going to do now is because I'm on, because we're not doing, obviously you'd have to connect this up to your main power setup and it will give you power. We're going to grab Coil, however you pronounce the name, and she's going to come over and we're going to press start, which will start up our reactor, and then we're going to push up the target flux. Now you don't need to pull it up straight to the top. This is about how much power you actually need. So you can put it up straight to the top and you'll be getting, you know, loads of power, or you can push it down to there, which will give you less power, but it'll conserve your control rods more. I'm going to push it to the top. And obviously on a big reactor you'll have all of this filled up with fuel, which we're not going to have at the moment because we don't need it. Oh, goodbye traders. So yes, this is the basic. Well, it's not the basic, but this is the reactor setup. So if you're going to make a reactor, this is how your yeah, that's what we're calling it. This is how your setup should look. Extras you can add on: storage pools. You can store old control rods into it. Some of the weaponry, it's very self-explanatory. All you have to do is place down a weapons console, place down the missile silo, and they will connect up. Rail guns and stuff like that, you'll need to place down a pulsed charge, which will hold the charge, and then the rail gun next to it, which will fire out all of your things. And I don't need to tell you most of this stuff. Just go and explore it for yourself and have a little bit of fun. Research reactors you will be needing if you're doing it through the research methods, but I'm sure the research will tell you all of that and how to do it all. Moving on to, now really that's the end of the tutorial, so if that's all you wanted to see, thanks for watching. But now I'm going to show you a little bit more on how to deal with if it okay, that was nice. We're going to have to deal with what will happen if it goes into a overheating. Usually this auto scram will be on, so if it overheats, it will automatically shut down, which is very nice and which you probably want to keep on. If you turn auto scram off, you're crazy and you're just not helping yourself. But it will add a little bit more intensity to it all. Ways that it can melt down. If you've got these outside, which you will, they can get damaged and blown up by raiders, and that'll take out your cooling system, which will lead to this overheating. And if you're in a battle and you can't get to your console, you can't shut it down, the whole thing will blow up. Other ways is if these pipings get damaged by any explosions or anything. Mainly if the piping connecting it gets damaged, or sometimes if it gets damaged itself, that can lead to some issues. Or if the console gets damaged and it just overheats by itself because you've not got enough cooling. You can't shut it down without the console. Your console should be in the most secure place where you could always reach it in an emergency. Because if you can't reach it, then it's not going to be too good if it goes into a meltdown. So I'm going to show you now what could happen. So let's just say you're being attacked by raiders. They've managed to over time destroy all of your things. You will go into an emergency core meltdown that will go off instantly. This is the stage where you can. Okay, let's pause this. This is a stage where you can do something about it. You can, shut down the reactor quickly, or if it's not in too much of an intense location, then you can just get everybody out of there. Clear the area and wait for it to melt down. If that would be your last course if your thing is to save as many people as you want. However, if we leave it in this core meltdown stage, then it will explode and kill everybody in the area. And because this is a big reactor, it's going to explode a lot more heavily than it would have if it was a small one. So Old Coil is going to be dying from radiation sickness because she is She is very... So we're going to send everybody who's still alive at least back to base. If this happens to you, it's going to be hectic. It's going to be a nightmare. Wow, he lost his head. Okay, it's going to be a nightmare. It's going to be really annoying. Which is why I will emphasize the fact that this should be built inside. This shouldn't be built anywhere near your base. Build this down here in a cave. Don't build it right next to your base, because that's not going to help anybody. Dealing with this, basically, you can't destroy it. You've got to grab yourself a sarcophagus and put it over it, and then this will contain some of the radiation, and that's your main way of dealing with it. And this whole area is going to be, is going to be destroyed for a long time. And you're going to go into a stage of radioactive fallout where this area will become heavily irradiated. So it's very wise to keep this out of the way of any and all bases. But that's all really I have to say. Of course, there was one last thing where if you've got your reactor, you can place in little upgrades. But you should research them on the research bench and learn about that, because that will really those will sort of give you more power. But that is all. That is the Rimatomics mod. It's a fun mod. It's a brilliant mod, and it's one that I have loved to learn about, and I hope you will too. Anyway, thank you for watching. Have any questions? Leave it in the comments. I will try my best to answer them. But yeah, try watching some of my other weird videos. See what you think. I'm very new to making videos, so any criticism, constructive, preferably, is much loved. But thank you for watching, and hope to see you in the next video.